And now, your hosts of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the For Frequency's Sake Tag Team Champions of the World, the Wizard CZ, and Never Wrong Nick Bull.
Hello, one and all, and welcome to another exciting edition of the Card Subject to Change podcast, episode 128. We will get to our guest in just a second. Of course, I am your host, Never Wrong Nick Bull. Joining me is my co-tag champ of the For Frequency's Sake Network, the Wizard CZ. Wiz, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Nick. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, man. Can't complain. Beautiful day. Another day we get to pump out a show, and another first-time guest on the show, and I'm very excited to get to meet him and introduce him to our audience. Of course, we are talking about the King of the North. We're going to find out how that nickname came about, but we have welcome into the studio this week, Gunner Brave. Gunner, so happy to have you with us on the Card Subject to Change podcast.
I got my own pyro this week.
The fireworks.
You're like Batista. Boom, 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 boom.
They got me pyro for the podcast.
Welcome aboard, Gunner. We're glad to have you on the show.
How you guys doing this fine Sunday?
Yeah, Sunday. It's Sunday afternoon as we record this. It's a beautiful day to do a podcast, and what better way? We got another first-time guest here on the show. We're so happy to have him. Episode 128, King of the North. Before we find out the whole history of the King of the North, I got to ask you, Gunner, what I always ask all of our guests: what got you hooked on pro wrestling? What was that pivotal moment, that polarizing moment that drew you in, sucked you in, and has kept you in interest of professional wrestling?
When I was a kid, I was, for some reason, very emotional as a kid. I'd always be upset about things. But wrestling was the thing that would make me not upset anymore all the time. It would bring me out of my world into theirs. And that was always cool as a kid. And then specifically, the Michaels Flair retirement match. I watched it happy as can be. I was a little kid watching Mania. But it was the first time that wrestling made me upset. And that was kind of a sparking moment of okay, this world that these men and women are fighting in can take anyone out of their reality for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes into theirs, which for sometimes is all that people need. So watching that match is what made me go from a fan to being this is what I need to be able to do. I even have the silhouette of the I Love You, I'm Sorry super kick tattooed on my wrist.
Oh, neat. That's awesome.
So yeah, that I always loved it. But then that realization of that this is sometimes larger than life kind of made me okay, well, this is pretty cool. I want to do this. So definitely that match.
And that moment in wrestling history, Nick knows this all too well. That is one of my all-time favorite matches and moments, just because of the emotion and the gravity of the whole thing there. Let me ask you, you're talking about Flair and Michaels. Who were some of your influences as you got into the business?
So definitely Sean, 100%. A lot of my crazier stuff, I take influences from Nick Mondo. Love Nick Mondo from CZW. A lot of my big falls are reminiscent of just legendary New Jack. Honestly, I love New Jack so much. So we got Sean. If I had to do my 4 people I take influences from, Sean, New Jack, Mondo, and trying to narrow it down to one. Honestly, I love Gargano. Just the small dude fighting his ass off thing.
Yes.
So those would be my 4 I kind of look and pull the most from.
Getting back to that Shawn Michaels Ric Flair match, I mean, just knowing what we know now about wrestling and how much wrestling has changed, and wrestling there's so much tribalism in wrestling, which there shouldn't be. But that match, it seemed like the whole world was watching, and that match united everybody. Everybody was on the edge of their seat for Flair Michaels. Everybody cared about that match. Everybody cared about the buildup. Everybody kind of knew how it was going to end, but you still wanted to see how it ended.
Yeah.
see if it was, so you could believe it with your own eyes. So when you mention that match, it just makes me think of all that, like how like the world was on end with that match and how big of a deal it was to the wrestling world at that time.
And then he went and worked TNA for a few years, so it didn't even matter.
I know. I try to block that from my memory. Flair retired that day. He had his one more retirement match later. I try to forget the TNA stuff
because I was just a kid, right? Like I'm 23 now, so I was really young when all this was going on. So I remember like just finding TNA like maybe a year or two later and seeing Flair. I'm like, yo, what the hell did I just cry for?
I know.
I love you, man.
I felt the same way. Same way. I'm much older than you, and I felt the same way.
You betrayed me.
So Gunnar, we mentioned it off the top. You are referred to as the King of the North. Talk about how that nickname came into be, how you became King of the North.
I'm gonna it's gonna be a very underwhelming answer, but we'll get to it. So the first moniker I went by was the Best in the Midwest. Because during the pandemic, Rocket Pro Wrestling put on a one-day tournament that we filmed in an empty arena. We got 16 guys to show up, and in one day we filmed a double elimination bracket. Took us 8 hours of filming. I had to do 8 matches in that day, and the winner was crowned the Best in the Midwest. And then I knew that my direction at Rocket Pro was turning to be more of like on the badder side. I was going to be like, I'm the good guy who I just won this great tournament, but I'm not getting any flowers for it. I'm not getting any title shots. So I go to the dark side and blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, I don't want to call myself the Best in the Midwest. It's too kind of like, it sounds like a young kid calling himself a nickname. So I wanted to do something that was a bit more like a larger scale, I guess. And me and my family are also we're big Vikings fans, Minnesota Vikings fans. And whenever they do good, they call themselves the Kings of the North. So I was like, that sounds pretty cool. And I picked that. And then everyone's like, oh, you're a big Game of Thrones fan. I've never seen Game of Thrones. I know that's where it's from. I've just never seen Game of Thrones. So yeah, I wanted something cool, and I'm a Vikings fan, and that's kind of it.
And obviously the name is stuck. How long have you had the moniker, and how has it grown since you've become that?
So I did the Best in the Midwest, the first one, boom, boom. I probably took on the King of the North moniker the end of 2021, maybe early 2022. So about 2+ years.
Sure.
And at first it really wasn't sticking, because I didn't know how to go about calling myself a king when I'm just some 5'7" white dude from Iowa, well, living in Iowa from Joliet. So then I started just like presenting myself with like almost like a less is more demeanor in a way, where obviously in my matches I do everything under God's green earth because whatever. But like even just entrances, I would always come out and be all like hyper and stuff. Then I just come out and I stand there for a minute and make people look at me, and that kind of like grew that up a little bit. And obviously my entrance gear now, it's white with blue and gold trim. It looks very royal. I have a robe that goes like from shoulders to feet. So I just kind of been molding it to be that like aesthetic. And now like I'll go to shows, maybe it's my first time there, and I'll have people yell out like my nickname. So I didn't know it was getting some traction to it until now. But it was just kind of a slight change in mannerisms, and I let myself get a little more scraggly to do like kind of a more not a mad king, but like because I still do, I'm heel most places I go. So I wanted to look like kind of a loose cannon in a way. So
Sure.
Just little odds and ends here and there that kind of culminated into it.
I like how you said there, Gunnar, that less is more. You hear people adopt that sometimes, or take it slow, or take their time with it. But it seems like the less is more has really worked with you with this.
Yeah, I definitely should listen to it in the ring because I do way too much in matches, but like the other parts are fine.
I'm gonna build off of that because I have to ask. I can't wait any longer. how did this come about? A Bloodline Rules scaffold match. First of all, how can you have a Bloodline Rules match without the Bloodline? Secondly, how does a scaffold get into this?
Yeah, so I am a big proponent of, like, just for wrestlers' well-being, you need to find a company that you can be a fan again, like wrestle and just have fun. So there's a company in Dwight, Illinois called Defiant Pro Wrestling. It's ran by two longtime friends, Dan O'Connor and Candace O'Connor. And for me, that is that place. And I've told them this, like, this is my place where I can, like, take it seriously, but kind of mess around and have some fun. I had a match. Well, they told me I was going to have a trilogy with one guy, and it was going to lead to him taking the title off me. And it's a guy that I know, and I've known him for a year or so. We've never wrestled, but, like, we like shooting the shit together. And, like, the first match, we're like, oh, okay, well, it was like noon. No one wanted to wrestle. The ring had a board in the middle of it sticking up. So I'm like, this is going to suck. So we just decided to go out there and just have just nonstop Fed finishes. I think we did 15 Fed finishes during the match. We did the entire Hogan Cena comeback and people's out, everything. We were just having fun. So like that, the crowd started to get behind it, but like, okay, well, these fans, they kind of know, like, they're here to have some fun too. So the next show, the 6-man tag, the winning team picks a stipulation for the blow-off match. And me and my two buddies, Stone Ambrose and Robbie Reeves, decided we're going to dress up as the Shield just to have fun. So we all had our bulletproof vests on, our cargo pants. We come out, the whole Shield entrance, blah, blah, blah. And we have this 37-minute 6-man tag going across the entire arena and just having fun. And then I'm thinking, I'm going to sit in the back, and I think Robbie asked me, like, how are you going to top this at the next show? Like, what can we do? Because you've already done every Fed finish known to mankind. You've cosplayed as the Shield. Like, what are you going to do? I said, I have no idea. And I'm just looking around, and I'm like, I could do no rules. I could do false count. And then I heard, like, in the back, two guys talking about how crazy Cody Roman was. I said, I guess I gotta do Bloodline Rules. Like, let's just have some fun with it. So, like, if I announce Bloodline Rules, I have time to then think of what I want to do. Like, there's this cool, crazy thing. So there's, like, no boundaries to what I can do, but I don't know what I want to do yet. And then, like, 2 days later, I think I texted Dan, the owner, at like 2 a.m. I said, you got any scaffolds? And he goes, I mean, yeah, why? I'm like, why don't you put that next to the ring? And that's the entire story. Just me saying, how can I keep one-upping this match and make it dumber? And it was so fun. It was so fun.
I can imagine.
Talk about how the match went down, because we hear Bloodline Rules scaffolding match, and it's like, wow, how did they pull this off? I want to hear how this was pulled off.
All right, I'll give you a play-by-play here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the match starts. Nick Codis is the opponent. He comes out. This is my Mania. This is the biggest match of my career in my mind. I've put it up to that. I am dressed like New Jack. I have my purple digital camos on. I have a Snoop Dogg t-shirt. I come out to the live rendition of War Pigs by T-Pain just for that show. It's a minute 47 before I even hit the curtain. I'm letting this anticipation build, brother. You better believe it. We get in the ring. All the refs are around the ring to, like, crowd control, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And one ref is in the ring, and I had my first of many tricks up my sleeve. So Nick goes like, this match is crazy. We need a ref who can take a punch. And he punches the ref in the face. He goes, not that one. Another ref comes in. I'm like, you know what? That's valid. Bow. I punch the second ref. So I'm like, we need a ref who can take a punch. And then, without taking a payday, just because he's a good brother, Sabotage Sean Logan comes out from the back in a cutoff ref shirt, booty shorts, and refs the match like Shawn Michaels.
I wish. Oh, the